Standing in front of the two-story house on Maplewood Lane in a quiet Boston suburb, Catherine Martin gazed at the envelope she had just retrieved from the mailbox. The summer morning sunlight turned her chestnut hair golden, and as the gentle breeze rustled the trees, her expression gradually darkened. The envelope was from her sister, Vanessa Collins. It was the first contact in 4 years. "Mom, I'm going to be late for school." 9-year-old Emma poked her head out the front door, her urgent voice cutting through the quiet morning air. Catherine snapped back to reality, slipped the envelope into her bag, and turned to her daughter with a forced smile. "I'm sorry, Emma. Let's go." Catherine worked as a senior analyst at an insurance company while raising her daughter alone. After her divorce 3 years ago, she had built her world around just her work and Emma, keeping family interactions to a minimum. It wasn't so much her choice as what circumstances had dictated. In the car, as Emma fastened her seatbelt, she asked, "Mom, did something bad happen?" Catherine smiled from the driver's seat. Emma's perceptiveness always amazed her. "No, everything's fine. I just received a letter from your aunt." "Aunt Vanessa?" Emma showed interest. "I hardly remember meeting her." "Yes. The last time you saw her was when you were 5, so you might not remember her." After dropping Emma off at Springfield Elementary School, Catherine took a deep breath and finally opened the envelope in her car. Inside was an invitation printed on thick, expensive paper. "Vanessa Collins and Brian Collins invite you to their housewarming party." The invitation was dated for today. An invitation arriving on the morning of the event itself. That was so like Vanessa. Always sudden, without warning, doing things only on her own terms. Catherine leaned her head against the steering wheel. Her relationship with her sister was complicated. Their mother Judith and father Walter had always given Vanessa special treatment. Vanessa had been a troubled child, problems at school, delinquency, dropping out of college, and numerous failed relationships. Yet her parents always protected her, supporting her financially and emotionally. Meanwhile, Catherine had been the good girl. Excellent grades, college graduate, stable job, marriage. But because she was self-sufficient, she received virtually no meaningful support from her parents. And 3 years ago, when Catherine asked for temporary assistance during her divorce from Michael, her parents coldly refused, saying, "You should solve your own problems." A few months later, Vanessa met Brian, a real estate agent, and their relationship progressed rapidly. Catherine learned about the wedding through an email from her parents. And now, they had purchased a home in an upscale neighborhood. Catherine gave a bitter smile. She had heard from a mutual acquaintance that her parents had provided a substantial financial wedding gift to Vanessa and Brian. Arriving at her office, Catherine sat at her desk and read the invitation again. The party was tonight at 7. On the back, there was a short note in Vanessa's handwriting. "Let's all celebrate a family reunion. Mom and Dad are looking forward to it." Catherine stared at those words for a long time. Family reunion. Deep down, a small part of her still wanted to repair her family bonds. She also wanted Emma to have a relationship with her grandparents and aunt. During her lunch break, Catherine discussed the invitation with her workplace friend Rachel over lunch at a cafe. "Surely you're not planning to go?" Rachel frowned. The former detective always had a knack for seeing through people. "Considering how your family treated you, especially during your divorce." "I know," Catherine said, rotating her coffee cup. "But when I think about Emma, I want her to have a connection with family." Rachel looked her friend straight in the eyes. "You always think about others. Sometimes it's okay to put yourself first." Catherine shrugged slightly. Her perfectionism and constant need to meet others' expectations often exhausted her. "Anyway, I'll go tonight. At worst, Emma can see her grandparents, and I can see my sister's new house," she said with determination. However, on her way back to the office, anxiety spread in Catherine's chest. A family reunion after 4 years. What outcome would it bring? That evening, Catherine picked up Emma and explained about the party. Tonight, we're going to see Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Vanessa. The whole family will be together for the first time in a while. Emma seemed a bit surprised at her mother's words but quickly smiled. We'll see Grandma and Grandpa. Wow, I'm excited. Watching her daughter's innocent excitement through the rearview mirror, Catherine felt mixed emotions. For Emma's sake, she needed to smile through the evening. Put aside past wounds and consider this a chance for a new beginning. At dusk, Catherine's car followed the GPS instructions into an upscale neighborhood in Brookline. As they drove down streets lined with brick mansions, her anxiety grew. These houses are amazing, Emma said, wide-eyed, looking out the window. Which one is Aunt Vanessa's? Catherine checked the address while answering, we're almost there. It should be just ahead. Stopping in front of a large iron gate, Catherine pressed the intercom. After a few seconds, with a metallic sound, the gate opened to let them in. A stone path leading to the entrance was flanked by professionally landscaped gardens. Mom, it's like a castle from a fairy tale. Emma said excitedly. Catherine smiled but was mentally calculating. This house was worth no less than $2 million. Even with Brian's successful real estate business, this property would be out of reach without financial help from their parents. Before they reached the front door, it opened, and Vanessa appeared. Cat! You came. 4 years had passed, but Vanessa's beauty hadn't faded. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, and her designer black dress fit her slender body perfectly. She rushed to Catherine and gave her a light hug. Her perfume was sweet and overpowering. I sent the invitation, but when you didn't reply, I thought you weren't coming, she said somewhat reproachfully. Catherine looked confused. But the invitation just arrived this morning. How was I supposed to reply? Vanessa's expression hardened momentarily, but she quickly regained her smile. Oh, that's odd. I mailed it last week. She turned to Emma, changing the subject. And this must be Emma. My, how you've grown. Come in, everyone's waiting. Entering the entrance hall, they found it already crowded with guests. Luxurious furniture, chandeliers, marble floors, everything spoke of extravagance. Look, there are Mom and Dad, Vanessa pointed to a well-dressed older couple. Catherine approached her parents nervously. Judith and Walter Sanders were chatting with other guests but paused their conversation when they noticed Catherine and Emma. What flashed across their faces momentarily was surprise and displeasure. Catherine, you came, Judith said with a formal smile. Her face, looking remarkably young for her 60s, was the result of expensive cosmetic surgery. And Emma, too. My, how you've grown. Walter gave Catherine a stiff pat on the shoulder. How have you been? That was all he said before immediately returning to his conversation with the other guests. Emma seemed confused by her grandparents' cold response. Mom. She called in a small voice. It's okay, Catherine smiled at her daughter. Grandma and Grandpa are busy right now. We'll talk with them later. As the party progressed, Catherine began to feel increasingly uncomfortable. The other guests seemed to be business partners or social acquaintances who either ignored her or looked at her strangely. Her parents and Vanessa rarely approached Catherine, and they occasionally appeared to exchange meaningful glances. Mom, I feel like we don't belong here, Emma whispered from a corner of the balcony. The other kids won't play with me either. Indeed, the other children were playing together in a separate group, excluding Emma. It hurt Catherine's heart. It just takes time, honey. They're all strangers, she answered gently, but inside, regret was growing. Perhaps coming to the party hoping for family reconciliation had been a mistake. While exploring the mansion alone to clear her mind, Catherine passed by the kitchen. There, she spotted Brian and several men gathered, talking. They didn't seem to notice her. "The documents are in order?" one man asked. Brian answered confidently, "Yes, everything's set. The signatures are verified." "When will the insurance pay out?" another man asked in a low voice. "It will be processed promptly after the accident," Brian said with a tight-lipped smile. "Don't worry. Everything will be finished by tomorrow." Catherine felt a chill down her spine. Insurance? Accident? What were they talking about? She quietly moved away and looked for Emma. Finding her daughter, Catherine felt somewhat relieved. Emma was standing alone by a window, looking out at the garden. "Emma, are you tired?" Catherine asked gently. Emma turned around and looked at her mother with an anxious expression. "Mom, this house feels strange." "What do you mean?" "Everyone keeps staring at us. And when I went to the basement." "The basement? You went there alone?" Catherine was surprised. Emma nodded slightly. "I was looking for the bathroom, and there were stairs, but when I went down, I saw some men working on something. They noticed me and looked really angry, so I ran away." Catherine's anxiety increased. She looked around the room. Her parents, Vanessa, and Brian had gathered in one spot, occasionally glancing at them while talking about something. Their expressions showed obvious tension. "Emma, just hang in there a little longer. We'll leave soon." Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand, trying to reassure her. Just then, Vanessa approached. Her smile seemed more strained than before. "Kat, you are staying overnight, aren't you?" "We have a guest room prepared," she said with unnatural brightness. Catherine was momentarily speechless. No, we weren't planning to stay. I have work tomorrow, and Emma has school." Vanessa's expression darkened briefly. "That's too bad," she said thoughtfully. "But it's late, and you've had drinks, right? It would be dangerous to drive. You should stay." Catherine found something odd about her insistence. If she were truly concerned about safety, she would suggest a taxi. Why was she so insistent on them staying overnight? "It's fine, I've hardly had anything to drink," Catherine answered firmly. "And Emma prefers to sleep in her own bed. I don't want to disrupt her routine." A flash of anger-like emotion appeared in Vanessa's eyes. "I see. But won't you stay and enjoy yourself a bit longer? It's still early." Catherine looked at her watch. It was past 9:30. "We'll stay a little longer," she smiled, but internally her wariness was growing. She wanted to leave this place quickly. However, leaving too hastily might seem suspicious. When she stepped onto the terrace for a breath of air, Catherine overheard another conversation among Brian's friends. "It should be finished by tomorrow morning," one said. "The timer is set." "We'll leave after they've gone to bed," another man answered. "It's a perfect plan." As the clock approached 10, the party atmosphere began to change. Many guests started preparing to leave, and the spacious living room gradually emptied. Seeing Emma's tired face, Catherine decided not to prolong their stay any further. "Let's go home now." She placed her hand gently on Emma's shoulder. "You have school tomorrow." Emma looked relieved. "Yes, I want to go home." Catherine picked up her bag and headed to the center of the living room to say goodbye to her family. Walter, Judith, Vanessa, and Brian were standing in a small circle, talking in hushed voices about something. They seemed tense. When Catherine approached, their conversation abruptly stopped. "It was a lovely party," Catherine said, pretending to be calm. "We should be heading home now. Emma is tired." All four turned to look at her simultaneously. Vanessa was the first to react. Her face showed surprise, then confusion, or perhaps distress. "Oh, you're still here," Vanessa said. There was obvious tension in her voice. Catherine frowned. "Of course I am. I've been here all along." "What are you talking about?" At that moment, Judith stepped forward and smiled strangely. "Why are you here?" Catherine's confusion only grew. "What do you mean, Mom?" "I came because I was invited to the party." Walter stood next to Judith and crossed his arms. "The party is over now," he said with a meaningful smile playing at his lips. The three exchanged glances and began to snicker. Their laughter had a malicious, eerie quality to it. Only Brian stood slightly apart, looking uneasy and checking his watch. Catherine felt as if her whole body had frozen. Her family seemed to be sharing some secret joke that she couldn't understand. Words caught in her throat, and she couldn't respond. Just then, Catherine felt a small hand grip hers tightly. It was Emma. She turned and looked at her daughter's face. Emma had gone pale and was trembling with fear. "Mom, we need to go now," Emma's voice was shaking. "Something's wrong." Emma's words brought Catherine back to reality. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "What do you mean?" Catherine asked quietly. Emma lowered her voice even more and answered, "I saw something strange in the basement. There was something like a timer attached to it." Emma looked around cautiously before continuing. "I heard Uncle's friend saying, after they've gone to sleep." The fragments of conversation Catherine had overheard on the terrace came back to her. Talk of insurance, timers, and the words, "after they've gone to sleep." Everything started to connect. An alarm rang in her mind. "I understand." Catherine looked into Emma's eyes and nodded quietly. While maintaining outward calm, Catherine's heart was racing. This wasn't just strange behavior. Some malicious plan was in progress. Her experience as an insurance analyst suggested the worst possibility. Life insurance fraud. Disguised as an accident. She cut off her train of thought. The conclusion was too horrifying to imagine. Turning back to her family, Catherine forced a smile. Showing panic would only heighten their suspicions. She needed to appear calm and act naturally. "Well, we're heading home now." "Lovely house," she said in as normal a voice as possible. Vanessa showed a slight look of relief and returned a thin smile. "Yes, come visit again sometime." "Of course, anytime," Judith joined in. Her eyes weren't smiling. Catherine gripped Emma's hand firmly and started walking toward the door. Behind them, she could hear her family snickering together. Their laughter felt like knives stabbing into their backs. In the hallway leading to the entrance, Brian caught up with them. "Wait, Catherine," he said in a low voice. "Are you really leaving? The roads are dark and dangerous. You should stay here." Catherine turned and looked straight into her brother-in-law's eyes. They showed anxiety and some other emotion, guilt, perhaps. "Thanks, Brian. But I'll be fine. I'm a careful driver," she answered calmly. Brian started to say something but didn't. Instead, he shook his head and only said, "Be careful." When they reached the front door, Catherine again felt the family's eyes on her back. Turning around, she saw Walter, Judith, and Vanessa watching them from a distance. Their expressions seemed to show disappointment and anger. Opening the door and feeling the fresh air outside gave Catherine a sense of relief. However, she didn't feel completely safe yet. She hurriedly guided Emma to the car. "Hurry, Emma. Get in the car," she said quietly. As they got into the car and started the engine, Catherine saw her family seeing them off at the entrance. They were smiling and waving, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. Driving away, Catherine couldn't relax until the house was no longer visible in the rearview mirror. Mom, that house was scary, Emma said in a small voice. Everyone was acting strange. Catherine turned to her daughter with a reassuring smile. It's okay now. When we get home, tell me everything that happened. Including what you saw in the basement. Emma nodded, but her expression was still filled with fear. What were Aunt Vanessa and the others trying to do? Catherine took a deep breath and chose her words carefully. I don't know, Emma. But thanks to you, we might have escaped something bad. You're such a brave, smart girl. Emma didn't ask any more questions. The car fell silent. In Catherine's mind, the fragments of information were starting to connect. The talk of insurance, the timer, the words, after they've gone to sleep. And above all, her family's bizarre behavior. What were they planning? When they arrived home, Catherine parked in the lot and carefully checked their surroundings before entering the house. Nothing seemed unusual, but her vigilance remained. Emma, let's sleep in my room together tonight, she suggested. Emma nodded obediently. Yes. I'm scared to be alone. After entering the house and securely locking the door, Catherine picked up the phone. This wasn't an issue that could be dismissed as merely strange family behavior. She needed professional help. Rachel, I'm sorry for calling so late, she called her friend. I need to talk. About what happened at the party tonight. On the other end of the line, the former detective Rachel responded in a serious voice. What happened? Tell me. Catherine took a deep breath and began. This might sound unbelievable, but... After hanging up, Catherine looked out the living room window at the night outside. It was a quiet night. But her heart was storming like a tempest. Tomorrow, she planned to go to the police. And she intended to uncover the truth about what her family had been planning. Emma had already fallen asleep in Catherine's bed. Catherine watched her daughter's sleeping face, resolving to do anything to protect her. Accepting the reality of her family's betrayal was painful, but Emma's safety was the top priority. I will protect you, she whispered softly to her sleeping daughter. No matter what. Catherine picked up her cell phone and opened the memo app. She needed to record everything that had happened tonight in preparation for tomorrow's police visit. And she also needed to check her insurance policies. If her instincts were correct, there would be some anomalies there. The next morning, Catherine woke up early and gently woke her daughter. Emma seemed to have been troubled by nightmares all night. Emma, let's skip school today, Catherine said gently. We have an important errand to do together. Emma looked at her mother's tense expression and nodded silently. After breakfast, as arranged with Rachel, Catherine took Emma to the police station. Rachel was waiting in front of the station. She hugged Catherine tightly as soon as she saw her. I couldn't sleep after hearing your story last night, Rachel said with a serious expression. I've arranged for you to meet Detective Michael Donovan. Detective Donovan, a solid-looking man in his mid-40s, was Rachel's former colleague. He led the three to a small conference room and listened intently to Catherine's story. Emma also explained in detail what she had seen in the basement. There was a black box with a timer attached to the gas pipes, Emma said nervously. Then I heard the men who were drinking saying things like, after they've gone to sleep, and, distribution of insurance money. Taking notes, Detective Donovan turned to Catherine. Ms. Martin, I understand you work for an insurance company. Any thoughts on this? Catherine took a deep breath and answered carefully, after my divorce, I took out a life insurance policy for my daughter. In case something happened to me, so Emma wouldn't be left without resources. Detective Donovan opened his computer and typed. Let me check something. A few minutes later, his expression hardened. Ms. Martin, it appears there was an application to change the beneficiary on your life insurance policy last month. Catherine leaned forward in surprise. What? I never submitted such an application. The application states that the beneficiary was changed to Vanessa Collins, and it has your signature. Donovan turned the screen to show her. Catherine looked at the signature and felt the blood drain from her face. This is not my signature. It's a forgery. Detective Donovan's expression tightened, and he gave instructions to an officer in the room. Please request a search warrant for the Collins residence. Also, contact the life insurance company and check the details of this application. The next few hours passed in a blur. The police searched Vanessa's house and discovered a timing device attached to the kitchen gas pipes and a system to introduce sleeping drugs into the guest room air conditioning. The plan was that if Catherine and Emma had stayed overnight, they would have died of gas poisoning while deeply asleep from the drugs. Simultaneous with the search, Vanessa, Brian, and surprisingly, their parents were arrested. They were taken to the police station and questioned in separate interrogation rooms. At Detective Donovan's suggestion, Catherine entrusted Emma to Rachel and remained at the station. Do you want to confront them? The detective asked, and Catherine nodded without hesitation. She met her mother first. Judith sat in the interrogation room chair, with no trace of her former elegance. Her makeup was smeared, and her face showed signs of fatigue. Why? Catherine asked in a trembling voice. A simple question, but it contained the accumulated hurt from childhood. Judith raised her face and answered through tears, You succeeded on your own. But Vanessa kept failing even with everything we gave her. We had to protect her. To the point of trying to kill me. Catherine's voice was cold. That wasn't the original plan. Judith lowered her face. We just needed money to help Brian's business. We were going to borrow your insurance money. But Brian said the insurance wouldn't pay out while you were alive. So. Next, she faced her father. Walter couldn't raise his face and kept staring at the floor. I had invested our retirement funds in Brian's business, he confessed in a tired voice. His real estate development ventures kept failing, and we lost everything. We had no choice but to rely on them. Finally, Catherine confronted Vanessa. Surprisingly, her sister's eyes showed hatred. It's your fault, Vanessa said in a low voice. Always perfect, independent, successful. Our parents' true affection was for you. No matter what I did, they only saw you. I thought if you were gone, everything would be mine. Catherine was speechless at her sister's words. The jealousy she had felt was completely reversed. Vanessa, I always envied you. Our parents adored you and forgave you everything. No matter how hard I tried, they never noticed. Vanessa's expression wavered momentarily but quickly closed off. It's too late now. Thanks to you, our lives are ruined. After the interrogations, Catherine returned to Detective Donovan's office, looking exhausted. The detective offered her coffee and quietly said, The evidence is sufficient. They will be charged with attempted murder and insurance fraud. Catherine gazed out the window. Dusk was approaching, and shadows were beginning to fall on the city. How is Emma? Rachel took her to her home. She's safe, Detective Donovan answered kindly. Catherine nodded. Thank you. I want to go home. I want to see my daughter. Before leaving the station, Catherine passed Brian in the hallway as he was talking to his lawyer. He briefly met Catherine's eyes, then lowered his gaze. His expression showed genuine remorse for the first time. Catherine, He began but lost his words. Catherine said nothing and walked past him. She didn't have the emotional capacity to forgive right now. Her heart was torn apart by the reality of her family's betrayal. But one thing was certain. Emma and she had survived, and they would move forward. In the car heading home, Catherine checked the messages on her cell phone. It was from Rachel. Emma is safe. Dinner is ready. We're waiting for you. Catherine smiled. Even without blood ties, she had a real family. Rachel and Detective Donovan and his family, whom she had met during this ordeal. Her colleagues at work. These were people who had extended their hands in difficult times. When she arrived at Rachel's house, Emma ran out from the entrance and hugged Catherine. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma's eyes were wide with concern. Catherine held her daughter tightly and kissed the top of her head. "I'm fine.